I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming tonight. So, do we have a approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
A motion, a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution for closed meeting for negotiation strategy. Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public comment.
I have a statement I'd like to read.
Okay.
I'm Cindy Smith. I'm an elementary IT teacher. So yes, this is kind of close to home. I'll try and get through it. Summary. The IT program, elementary ITA program, is a successful intervention program. We serve 27 students with additional students on a waiting list, which is over 10% of the elementary population. We provide between 11 and 12 hours a day of mostly one-to-one interventions, intense interventions which are geared towards helping to close the gap with reading and writing so that students can confidently participate in their grade level activities. And I understand tough decisions have to be made sometimes, but if ITA must go, then it must go. But I think you need to be clear that if it is going, if it needs to go to make way for different or more effective or more accepted programs, then I would ask that you not eliminate it until other plans are firmly in place. And if it needs to go because our district is currently over budget, then I want it to be clearly acknowledged that the access reading and the special education cannot absorb 11 to 12 hours of daily intervention, and that you will be leaving 30+ students without current services that help them alleviate the confusion, the frustration, and the lack of progress that they often experience during grade level learning.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Consent items. A motion to approve the consent items.
Move to approve.
Second. Is that discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, discussion. Houston High School update, Mr. Lumber.
Thanks. I just have a couple things, and maybe you have questions for me too, so mine will be pretty brief. You want to kind of know a little bit about the comp sci classes that we have in place right now. Last year we approved having some computer science classes. I'm teaching them, they're online, but they're online, but I'm able to help the students out extensively in the intro to computer science class. We had 4 students first semester, 4 students second semester, and 1 student that took the class, because you can take it 2 semesters all year long. The kids really, really enjoy that, so that's been a really good thing and another elective for the kids. And then we have 4 students that are in the AP Java, class, which is, an AP class, so they'll be taking the AP exam in May, and that's been a really good, rigorous course for those kids there. I've been kind of taking the classes as we go along. So yeah, I think we need to continue that. It's a really good option for our kids, and the place that I have getting the curriculum from just does a great job with their putting it together, and it's really user-friendly. It's made for anyone that has a teaching license to be able to run it, and I have a computer science background a little bit, so I'm able to help the kids. Not so much in the advanced Java, but we have one student that's doing a remarkable job, so he's able to help others too. Questions on that at all?
How many are in that comp sci?
In the AP one,
Yeah.
the AP has 4 kids,
4, that's
and the intro to comp sci, there's 8 kids that took a semester of it, and 1 kid that took the entire year of it. Yeah, so 9 kids altogether.
So so where is the
They
curriculum
come. They
from?
come in. Adhesive is the one that's running the curriculum for us.
So it's not a
K-12.
It's not a K-12,
product.
it's a separate
Correct.
curriculum provider? And it's not the same one that's used in Summit?
Odyssey Ware.
No, Odyssey Ware, no. And this is probably one of the best ones. And it's $125 per year per student on it, which is a pretty good price for how much they have and the support that they have for it. I don't think we could find a better online curriculum for that kind of price.
And so they come in here?
They come in here, and then, and it's great because Cindy goes, oh, someone has a problem, and I'll just come down and help them out, and, and so I have all the answers if I need to, but usually in computer science, it's like, you forgot a space here, that's the only reason. You need to make sure, because computers are literal, they're, so it's kind of fun.
So when you pay that $125 per student per year, that's whether they take half a year or?
No, the half a year, that's a great question. The half a year is $85 for a semester. So you're right. It's cheaper if you do the entire year piece of it. And if we had 1,500 kids taking it or something like that, then we get a break or something.
And so their seats are their seats are, it's just by seat.
It's by seat. Yep. It's purely by seat. And it works out well, and again, it's kind of like an online, they can take it any hour, so, I have a couple kids 1 hour, and then a couple hours, and then another hour, have maybe 1 kid in it, and yeah. It's nice if there's a couple in there, they can help each other a little bit if they get stuck, but it's worked well. I really like it. Any questions on that?
No.
A little bit about Schoology. I have 3 to 4 teachers, I would say, that are using it really extensively and really putting a lot on there. One, maybe I shouldn't say it that way. 4 that are really, using it extensively. Not everything's on there, but they're using it for different things. And 1 teacher that has like everything on it already. I mean, just it's a rock star, but has used it before. Best practices is you should do this anyway. Get the teachers dabbling in, get the ones that are really gung-ho, get them, trained, get them excited about it. Other teachers will want to jump on board. Well, we have a PLC that wants to jump on board and really start using it a lot more. So the next in-service day, they're actually going to have the tech integrationist from Dependable Solutions coming in, and she's kind of the Schoology expert from that. So she's going to be able to work with us, and that's part of our contract there with Dependable Solutions. So she's going to work with that group on the Schoology. And then, so really the goal is that next year we're going to just, having everyone make sure that they're working on it. So by the 1920 school year, the goal is to have anything for a class, a kid can go on to Schoology and find out about it. They don't have to go to any other resources. That's going to be the one-stop shop. But we've got to take things in step. And so next year is really pushing everyone, and we're going to do some more training at the beginning of the year and really working with them, the staff. But then by that following year, we'll be able to have things on, which will be just great. And the teachers are still quite excited about it, so that's good. I haven't heard negative things about it. Sometimes new programs, not everyone's on board, but haven't had that, so I'm excited about that.
No, is the grade schools on the same path to get everybody on by 2019?
Speak on the grades on behalf of the
I didn't, because you mentioned you're having these people come over for training, and so I'm assuming that if there's people at the grade school that want to be part of that, maybe
They could set up their own training too, so this will be a little smaller group because it's a PLC, so it's not even my entire staff that's going to be doing it, so it's just a small portion of it. So yep, that's part of what Dependable will do, come over and say, hey, yeah, let's get this small group. And they like it. Staff kind of likes to be able to be in small groups because then they can ask those questions, and PLCs usually have some nexus, and so they're able to work together, so it's kind of a neat move. Glad they're doing that. So. Science, MCA science update, can't give you as specific as I want to because it's preliminary data, it's not really for public knowledge, but we started our MCA testing already Tuesday this week, and then today we did the MCA science test, and we do those really early. The teachers wanted, had a lot of success last year. You know, Summit Learning Center did extremely well. Wait, has the meeting, you got 100% meeting? Maybe we only had one kid take it, but that's still really good. Eighth grade, much better than last year, and they did much better than what the state average is, so that was really exciting there. I think there's some curricular issues we might have to start looking at with 7th and 8th grade, just because of that is a banded test, and so some of those kids, you know, some of the physical science, they really hadn't had since 6th grade, and that's maybe a lower area. And then, you know, the life science, they have in 7th grade, and so that's the next low area. So the earth science, which they have right now, that's their highest area. Well, duh, you know, so we may have to look at that piece of it to change things there. 10th grade, again, right, somewhere around the state average, above the state average, and better. You look at where those kids were in 8th grade, and, you know, they crushed what their percent meeting or exceeding was in the 8th grade, so that's good too. So yeah, we keep working on it. The teachers are just, you know, really trying to find ways to make sure that we have a lot of success in those tests. And math and the reading, they're working really, really hard, and we've talked about some other ideas how we can encourage kids to do well too. Other questions? Other high school questions?
Josh, you have anything? Michael?
I'm setting myself up. I'm okay with that.
No, I don't have any. It's nice to hear from what's going on.
Very good. Ron? I'm good. Jamie? Okay, thanks, Todd. Appreciate the update. Okay, strategic plan follow-up, Corinne?
This was on the board agenda last time, but got pulled because it really takes the whole board. We need to come up with a, what the board's end vision really is for this, what the board is expecting the product to be. Because in talking to individual board members, I'm getting different views on what we're doing and what the end goal is with this. And so that's why, as the committees are meeting, we need to make sure the committees have that clear vision on what their work needs to be, what it's funneling toward.
And then we talked at the last meeting about having like this committee kind of guiding these other committees, making sure that
A governance committee?
Yeah, monitoring that.
We talked about that, but we never came to a consensus.
Yeah.
We never got that.
We just kind of brought it up. We never really actually discussed it as a whole board. But it'd be nice to have some way, and I think, I don't know if you were part of the conversation, Michaeline, or who else was part
Then
of
we
it.
have it quartered out. Then we have a topic per 3 months, and
A topic is fine, but what's the end vision going to be? Is the end vision going to be, we've got these 4 areas and they're underneath the vision and mission, and then we just have these 4 areas with one goal? Or are these tied to the world's best workforce goals? What is the end product going to be? Is this something that the marketing group is going to want to use as far as this is our strategic plan? What do you want as far as the timelines for it? Is this a goal that's a board goal under each of these, or is this something that is fitting in with a larger mission within the school? What do you have answers for any of those? And that's kind of what this conversation is.
well, they don't all lead to one pinnacle event or achievement. It was all about improvement and continuing progress. That sounds great if we had one thing and all 4 things merged into one, but
Well,
I don't see that. Speak freely, everyone. I guess the idea was that we were trying to pinpoint out of those 4 topics, you know, to specialize and have certain people dig in deeper and investigate more. As far as the tie-in with World's Best Workforce, I don't know. Maybe someone else can.
Well, where I'm at, and I've talked to Corinne, and I have emailed Corinne and Tom, the governance committee idea, I feel like we discussed that I wasn't at the last meeting, a month ago. We discussed that, and I thought we kind of came around to, well, that's the full board needs to govern this. The full board needs to be informed about all of these areas, so I sort of had the impression that the full board is the complete oversight, and that we had quarterly, that we were to be moving different people, different segments, we're gonna work on each of these areas and report to the full board.
I agree with what you're saying is if we gain something in technology, we can use that in our marketing, or likewise technology and partnerships in marketing. I mean, they do tie in, and we'll see that. We just need to get after it.
Did you, was the goal that we have one goal under each of these that's separate from any of the other World's Best Workforce goals? Is it separate from that? Is
I thought
it
they were all tied in together with the World's Best Workforce goals. That was my understanding, is what we were discussing, right?
The World's Best
Did I miss that?
Workforce goals are every kid is ready for kindergarten. I mean, there's goals the state told us we had to have, and those are what those are, is
Right.
what Corinne is talking about. We have one that we added, and it said that we'll focus on STEAM. The rest of them are every kid is ready for. These are completely different.
Well, I mean, if you're going to say that the World's Best Workforce and this are the same thing, they're not. But curriculum development falls under World's Best Workforce to some degree. Whatever you're discussing, whatever the curriculum development group is talking about, should tie in to that World's Best Workforce plan. Probably the staff development plan, probably the district advisory committee. I mean, all of those play a role in curriculum development.
But if we say our goal, our board level goal is to implement Schoology, that's what we're focusing on for technology for the next 2 years. That doesn't change World's Best Workforce. We
No.
still are gonna make sure every kid's ready for kindergarten.
Right.
We're gonna do all those things. Now, what the teachers decide to focus on might be slightly different. They might decide to do more PLCs on Schoology. Or, I mean, there's what, 30 or 40 goals within there, and we don't get into that level of detail with those goals. That's up to the teachers and PLCs to come up with. But if we say that Schoology is important, then they can keep all their goals the same as they were, or they could adjust them too, right? World's Best Workforce, those lower level goals, are they updated yearly?
Mhm.
So each year they could change those, you know? But, I mean, I don't think we want to get involved in those level. This is just a
No,
high
this is
level,
at the-
you know,
this
4
level.
high level goals of what the board wants to focus on. And I think us saying Schoology was the most important technology item, I mean, we just heard from Todd, I mean, they're implementing it more. I mean, I think that sent a message to the teachers, this is really important.
Oh, yeah,
But Schoology is just on site, because online they have D2L.
right.
But
But it all, at the end of the day, it all goes back to the world's best workforce at the end of the day. That's what all these things funnel to make happen, right? That's what we want. They're all kids graduate, go to school and learn what they're supposed to do. All we're doing is, like Michaeline said, is curriculum development, technology, partnership, and marketing. All that kind of ties in with what we want to do in the school. And then we had subgroups that we're going to dig into each one of these, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Corinne, now you're gonna be involved in all 4 of these?
Yeah.
So, and we had a schedule, pencil out, and I don't have.
Yeah, I thought we had it kind of laid out.
But-
We're going to start communicating. We just want to
no,
stay on track.
And
We've
they
had
have-
some meetings already. We've had technology meetings, I know. Curriculum, they had a meeting. I don't know that partnership or marketing, is that done anything?
That, yes, we should talk about that and schedule something. It'll be myself, Mimi,
Mhm.
Corinne, and so we should.
Are you hoping that this would look, as we're done and have this plan on which we can because it's gonna be a living document. We're going to be following it. But is there a format that you were expecting to see? Is there, because were you expecting one goal under each of these? Were you expecting,
I think we need to, once we get together and start airing it out, and then each area would have different, you know?
You eat an elephant a bite at a time.
Yeah.
And I think you're trying to look at you're trying to eat the elephant at once.
I don't wanna eat it, I just wanna know, is it
So
an elephant or is it a giraffe?
Well, it
I
might
wanna
not
see it
be.
on-
I think
We
what
don't
it
know,
is
it's a process, and we don't know what it's gonna
it's-
look like at the end. But if we have input from the teachers and input from leadership and input from the board and input from the community, and we follow with each one of these groups and look at what we've got so far and meet and talk about it, we're gonna end up with the best thing. And
Right.
it might not be an elephant. I don't know what it's gonna be, but I know that we followed the process and we ended up what's best for our school. Whether it's a giraffe or an
Right,
elephant.
and I guess what I'm saying is technology might have end up with one goal after, you know, and marketing might have 2 or 3 or partnership, you know, so is that just too loose, too out there?
Well, I
It's okay.
suggested we have a study session on this because we need to figure this out. But again, my understanding is we had a joint leadership meeting. We had principals and administrative leadership and us, and we came up with, and we solicited input from teachers and from the staff, and we came up with the 4 areas of focus: curriculum development, technology, partnerships, and marketing. It's our job then to look at those and to find out where we're at in those areas and to find out what direction we want to go in each of those areas and report back to the board. But I hear you saying we need a I don't know what we need for a strategic plan goal override or overall. I hear you saying that that's what you're looking for, and I think that's where we started.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree
I think
with
what it needs
exactly
to
what
be
you
is
said.
like-
These groups need to meet.
Right,
Sorry.
exactly. No, exactly like Josh said. Meet, talk, come up with some ideas and solutions on how curriculum development, how we can change it and make it better. What we need to do to make the success of our kids better in that area. Technology, what do we want to do? You know, Schoology, that's one of the things that we're focusing on. And that may be the only goal we focus on under technology for the next 2 years. But timelines, so they can come back, Rick and Todd can come in here and say, okay, like Todd just said, all these are the quantities of teachers that are on track at this time. These are the ones that are working it. We have 1 that's loving it. We have maybe 10 that hate it. Well, how do we overcome that? You know, work together to get everybody on track by 2019. Todd just told us by 2019, 2020, every teacher in the high school will be on track at that point. Now we need to find out from Rick, is that the same in that scenario?
So
You know, where
what
are we
I'm
at?
hearing you saying is that you want a continuous improvement process from each of these 4, not necessarily a goal setting under each of the 4.
Well,
You want evaluation and continuous improvement process.
Well, that's what we want, is continuous improvement, but at the same time, there may be, in that committee, they may say, okay, these are our goals for between now and the next meeting. We want to get this done, or where are we at? Timelines, what's going on, you know? Not just hearsay stuff. Come up with some solid stuff to do. Marketing, what are we doing in marketing to make our, you know, in that area? Partnerships, what are we doing with businesses around here? Are we talking to anybody yet? Have we had that group sit down and say, okay, this is what we want to focus on? You know, some of our kids may want to do something with Winona. Can we talk to some businesses up there that we can partner with? In town, who can we partner with to help our kids? We go to these meetings up in Minneapolis and they talk about it all the time. That one school's working with Shutterfly. Another one's working with another group, hospital. You know, what are we doing? What's Houston going to do for our kids? But until, like Mimi said, and like Josh is, until these groups meet and kind of come up, brainstorm some ideas and thoughts, you know, the first couple of meetings, I'm sure they're going to be stumbling blocks. You know, and everybody's going to throw in 100 different ideas. Just narrow it down and come up with something that they can bring to the board and say, the curriculum development decided this is what we want to focus on for the next 2 years or the next 6 months, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a continuous improvement plan, the meeting of these areas to me is trying to figure out where are we. We need to figure out where we're at. The board, I mean, you probably know, the people in the schools know in different areas where they're at in each of these different things, but we need to know where we're at so we can figure out then maybe a goal to
Yeah,
go
where we're gonna
towards
go.
something.
But we're governance, and we look at like Schoology. I mean, Todd says that they get 3 or 4 using it very well and everything. And we, as us, we need to set, well, how many do we want on? Because do we want to continue funding this?
Well,
If
we
they're not
want all of
using
them
it,
on
why
it.
are we
We've
paying
already
for it?
decided that. We already decided when we went to Schoology
Yeah,
that it's not gonna be an option.
but I mean,
They all need to be part of this, and the principals both need to be monitoring to ensure that the teachers are meeting these goals, like Todd just gave us
Right,
his
that's what
goal,
I mean.
you know, and who's gonna go to this thing, and what's the next step,
But
you know?
the technology, then they should report from the technology to us as governance that they are making progress on this, and this is how they continue, and they need help in terms of like having dependable solution come down more west. Do we have to fund that or something?
Yeah, I'd like to see more of a plan
Yeah.
and
No, that's-
a
I mean, that's-
rollout
yeah.
plan, and this is our schedule. I'm really glad, Todd, you threw a year out, because I've been waiting to hear that. So did you keep repeating what you said, and I typed it down, so.
I wrote it.
That's the
because
same for the elementary, 1920s.
Perfect. And so, but I'm also concerned about scope too, because there's, Schoology,
1920.
we're implementing the smaller, we're implementing a smaller portion, so, what scope do we implement as well? So that's another concern that I have.
But again, that's committee discussions and then bringing it up to the board where we're at. Again, we as a board, like Michaeline said, I don't think we know everything we need to know about these areas and where we're at as a school. So that's what we want, Corinne, if you're wondering now.
Well, and I've also told Corinne, I don't know. Now I've heard from Josh, I've heard from Mimi, I've heard from you, I haven't heard from Ron and Gary. I don't know what your understanding of this process is. I'd like to know whether we looking for a big umbrella and goals, or what are your thoughts?
Well, the continuous process should take us toward and bring us closer to a goal with it. And it sounds like, the guidelines don't have a whole bunch of goals, or you have no goals. I think that's been quoted before. So maybe work toward one goal under each one and define a process to meet that goal.
So would it make sense that the full board, as the governing body, hears from each of these areas and then says, of all of these inputs, this is what we want to focus on, or this is what we need more information on?
Yeah, that's the way it should. They should bring it back to us and as a board decide. Like I think we somewhat already decided on the Schoology, right?
Well, we've talked about it, yeah,
I mean,
but we don't know what the specific plan is. But
Yeah.
not that we have to, we're not developing that.
No,
We
no,
just
that's
need
what I
to
mean.
know what it is.
Right.
That's what's needed to move forward anyway, to give a yay or a nay to an idea, or to so.
Ron, what are your thoughts?
Putting down partnerships. I don't even know what that means. We don't have any kind of a.
Yeah, Jean and I and Corinne went to a meeting 2.5 weeks ago. We started that conversation with this.
EDA.
Yeah. So we didn't really, so that's why we went to that, because it was business and school partnerships with our school. That's what that partnerships meant to me when we established it.
Yeah.
So how does that, if you take partnership, then what is our goal?
To find out what's available, first of all, and then to say if there's an opportunity for businesses locally to have job shadowing or internships, or to come in and provide a curriculum, or
Incorporating our students.
incorporating our students into those real world
And
things.
who's doing this?
Well, that's what we're
They just started
investigating.
talking. They just
It is
started-
being done, it's not
Basically,
that it's
it's
not
just,
being
it's
done,
just starting, so it's gonna take, like I said, it could take 6 months, it could take a year.
Oh,
Before we
in
come up
other
with some-
districts,
I
it's
fall asleep for a couple of weeks and I
it's
miss everything that's
flourishing.
going on.
Yeah.
I mean, this one's real straightforward. I mean, it's giving students an idea of what a job field looks like, also allowing them some training. I mean, especially when you get to that senior year, a lot of times their credits have been met. They have some extra. Even some of our juniors are cruising, So I mean, that's the key opening And quite honestly, that's almost too late. I mean, you wanna have direction by then for what you're looking at.
Well, the meeting that Jean and I went to, and Todd was there as well, and Corinne was there, I learned that our school was doing some things that I wasn't aware of, as far as exposing, you know, trying to get students in the high school out to be, you know, I forgot about was it the 9th grade that do the job shadowing? I mean, it's those kind of things that is like, where are we at, and what else can we do with that? What other opportunities are there? But I don't know, what did you feel like, Jean, from that meeting?
But yeah, it's getting out to businesses or having them come in and have career days, having more career days or just.
We do a career day, and the businesses express some concerns from their point of view, which we have to be sensitive to as well. So
There's obstacles, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
there
for
are
instance,
obstacles.
like,
So is our goal to have every student experience some kind
just be
of-
available.
Well,
You know,
I don't know yet.
The group needs to meet.
The
and come up
The
with a
group
goal.
needs to meet.
Are
Bring
you
it
part of that
forward.
group, Ron?
And that's what we're saying, Ron, we just need to start meeting and discussing and come up with, bring back some information to the board. We always have a note on here for, you know, any meetings, updates, committee updates. And at that time, somebody that had their meeting, whether it be technology or whatever one meetings they had, would bring it up, hey, this is where we're at.
No, I think we need more than that, though. I think it needs to be a old business. It's that quarterly thing. Here's what we've got. Here's to the whole board. What direction do you want us to go? What else? What other information do you need? Or are we ready to sort of set a goal, set a target for that group? That's how I see it. But again, we all need to see the same thing so that Corinne knows what we're trying to do.
the idea is to keep us motivated and not treading water, just to keep moving forward. I mean, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, but everybody can move forward in a bunch of different directions, which isn't gonna move the
You know,
district.
I'm just saying. Yeah,
So
we
when
need to
you say that quarterly, Michael, and I think it's a good idea to say, put down some document, you know, dates.
Well, have it on the agenda rather
Right.
than just an update. The
Right.
updates are fine, but when it's time for, okay, we need the full board to weigh in on this now, then it needs to be
Well,
part of the
that's what
agenda.
I was thinking of having an update. We had a meeting and we're gonna have another meeting next week and then I want to present
Okay,
on this day at this board meeting. Just kinda let us know that they're talking and communicating amongst, you know, there's stuff going on in each committee.
right.
I know they've had, 2 committees have had meetings so far that I know of? And the other 2, you said you wanna get one going on the other
But
one?
marketing is the only one that really hasn't convened.
Yeah.
So we
set
should
that
get,
up.
though, the rest of them need to reconvene and have another, you know, so it's the continuous, don't drop it. Now that we've talked about it, you know, and then see where they're at that meeting. And then bring it up to the board, somebody should speak on it at the next board meeting, whether it be just an update. If there's nothing being decided yet, and then like Michaeline said, once they kinda decide this is the direction we're looking at, bring it up in discussion and in business and talk about it. Well, what does the board wanna do now? This is where we're at. That's kinda what you were alluding to, correct, Mike?
Yeah, well, yeah.
That
For the
seem
purpose
right?
of setting that more of a bigger goal then, that for budget
The next step,
concerns
yeah.
and for.
If, like Gene said, if there's money required, do we need to, you know, allocate funds? Do we need a budget? You know, what do we need to do? None of this is gonna happen overnight. Is everybody somewhat in agreement here? Thoughts?
I don't know,
input?
Mimi, I still wanna hear, so you see it a little bit differently, and I don't quite,
No, I think we're on the same page.
okay.
I really do. I am concerned because the last 2 meetings I've asked for a marketing group to get scheduled and it still hasn't gotten scheduled. And so I'm concerned that we're gonna have the same discussion 2 weeks from now.
Well, I
Instead
thought
of
we had a
moving
date
forward,
set.
we're going to go in circles.
Well, we should schedule it today before we.
I thought we were talking about having every committee meet before a certain date. Ann, was that correct? Wasn't that by sometime in April? Every committee was supposed to meet?
The first quarter, everybody was supposed to meet.
Correct.
that
So
kind
the
of
only
was-
the only group that has not met yet is
Is
the
marketing.
marketing. So they need to get on the calendar this month, before April. Or soon. And that's you, Mimi, right?
And
Yeah,
then
Josh.
we need to know when
Yeah.
Josh is available.
So you wanna take care of that before you?
Yeah, we
leave
should
off
do that.
tonight?
Yes, exactly. Before
Is
we
that
go
good
watch
for
the
you, Mimi?
donkeys.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
it's gonna become more clear to us until we get these groups meeting
Right.
and talking. And then it will become more clear. I mean, the one group was easy, Schoology came up,
Mhm.
we're all on board with it. The other groups are more complicated, but we're never gonna make progress until we meet.
So we meet with that one and then we'll start the rest of the cycle. I mean, I don't wanna sit here and dictate, we need to have, say, hey, April 15th, the curriculum development meeting, they'll have a meeting on the 15th, the 16th, technology, partnership on this day. I don't think we need to do that. We just need to have them. Do you feel like once a quarter for each meeting, each group is sufficient? Josh? We'll go around and ask. Mike Lee?
I think some of the groups
more
need to
frequently?
meet more frequently. I mean,
Technology, right?
I think we
Yeah.
need follow-up right now on the technology
Yeah.
committee. And the partnerships, we attended a meeting, but we haven't really sat down and talked about what does that look like for our district and what ideas can we generate from here. So we had a meeting, but we need to take the next step.
And District Advisory Council too, I mean, that was months ago that we met.
Mhm.
We probably should have had a follow-up meeting even the next week or the week after, and,
Well, it's
we
fresh in
didn't.
your
So
head.
I think sometimes they might need to meet 2 times a month, but then they might not need to meet for 3 or 4 months. I don't know.
The committees need to decide that, but we need to get it done.
Marketing, I mean, that can be, it should meet, but set goals, because that's ongoing now. The newsletter will be coming out, I mean, that's a form of marketing.
Yeah.
We got the new signage coming up,
Yeah.
that's a form of marketing and things, so I mean, things are ongoing, but how much more do we wanna do, and how can we get more people involved in putting the articles out there?
Sure.
I mean, how many people know that we're looking at putting up a facilities building project?
Okay, so more meetings.
More meetings,
At the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
more meetings.
So then you're gonna get the marketing done before the end of today. These guys just said they'd set one.
Yeah, we'll
Nobody goes
set
by
And
a
it sounds
donkey
like
until it's
curriculum
set.
wants to set one coming up shortly, right, maybe?
I was listening to our
Curriculum.
donkey, yeah, what, yeah.
Curriculum wants to set up another one. You're listening to a donkey.
I said, nobody goes by the donkeys until that's set.
Okay.
Be careful where you point, Dan, please.
She said donkey, not the other word.
Then we point at Rick. Anyway, so then technology, basically they should all have a meeting somewhat coming up. That help you there, Corinne, with your thought and what we wanna do? It's not clear as mud, but it's getting there.
Could I ask a stupid question then? Could I know who's on each of these committees?
As far as which board members?
Yeah.
Curriculum development is being done by the District Advisory Committee, and District Advisory Committee members on the board are Mimi and Jean.
Gene,
Okay, and then technology is a District Technology Advisory Committee, and members from the board on that are Mimi and Michaeline.
And Jean as well.
Yeah.
and Gene.
Okay,
Three.
and then partnerships, that's Jean and Michaeline, and then marketing is Mimi and Josh.
Would you like to be on one of those, Rob? 'Cause
He feels excluded.
marketing or partnerships can use one more person, or
Who's on
I go on
marketing?
marketing.
Who's on marketing now?
Me and myself.
Mimi and
I'll go on
Josh.
that one.
Okay, Tom, you wanna go on
Sure.
marketing? Okay,
Sorry, Ron.
and then,
Jumped on you.
so you can do partnerships if you want, Rob.
Okay. Well, I feel like I should be on something and missed one.
You missed one meeting,
I
and
didn't get on it.
but we wanted to volunteer you for stuff.
yeah, but we've been,
But you still have policies, so don't worry.
Things just got better right there. There's progress, people.
Okay, anything else on that, Corinne?
no,
Okay. Old business, items for discussion and approval, program reduction, the ITA grant. Corinne?
Okay.
Let's,
this was brought up at the meeting. In looking at the grant requirements and the grant changes, as they are, the grant doesn't fund the entire program. And in looking at what they gave us as far as if we are going to submit a grant application again for next year, and they have changed because their finances are not as, they don't have the finances they used to have. And so they are looking at programs doing more of the in-kind donation than they have in the past. And so we're looking at the number of students in the program. We're also looking at the fact that ITA is not considered research-based by the state of Minnesota. And so then with the students that we were going to use it with, there are some groups that frown on us using that as a replacement or an intervention.
Some groups, like what do you mean by some groups?
MDE, special education.
So what are they recommending?
When we applied for ADSIS, the only interventions we could use with, and ADSIS is actually used with non-special education students, but it's actually funded through special education dollars at the state level. We had to use only the research-based interventions and strategies that the state of Minnesota approved, because they said any expenditure of special ed dollars had to be used for research-based interventions.
How does one define research-based?
A third-party independent research where there's the norm referencing. We were told to look at the What Works Clearinghouse, because that's got a list of research-based interventions that we could use. So it's the third-party independent.
Because when I looked at the ITA site, the ita.org, and they have published research papers backing what they're proposing and comparing it to other types of reading. You know, it was comparing traditional to this, and here are the results, and you know, here is the way that this is perceived as, or showing improvements in phonetics and reading and writing for certain populations. So that's why I'm wondering, what does that mean, research-based? So, you know, I'll call MDE and say, well, why doesn't this count for, did you look at it? MDE, have you looked at it before you say it's not research-based? And I don't know that they would look at it just because I asked them to, but.
No, but the one thing I have a question on is, when this initially came up, which was years ago, correct? When this whole thing started.
25 years ago.
The whole purpose of this was to fill that gap that we didn't have funding anywhere else.
Correct.
My concerns are, you know, yeah, there's a cost to it. There's no doubt about it. There's a cost to everything we do in this building. And, you know, the reason we took it was, well, it was a grant. It was free money. We're going to take all we can get. But at the end of the day, what it was all about is the kids. You know, is if we do this and eliminate this program, are we going to capture those kids somehow in another program? Or are we just going to kick the kids to the curb and say, good luck, have fun, and you can do it in your classrooms? Obviously, there's a reason we have this program, because they can't do it in the classrooms and they need extra help. And if it's shown that it's improving their capabilities to move forward, whether it be with their classmates or maybe a step behind, but they're moving forward. I mean, it's money, I know, but what are we doing to fill that? At the end of the day, what are we doing to take care of those kids? Because I don't want to, you know, if we have 27 kids, from my understanding, that are utilizing this, and are we just going to say, well, sorry, you know, nothing we can do?
We do have ADSIS, And we could, in scheduling, they could have access, also the students that are on IEPs and in special education, could have more time in special education, because we could, with reimbursement for special education staff, actually have another special education teacher with less expenditure than what we're spending on the ITA grant.
So what would that cost us to do? What you're saying we could, it's a possibility. So obviously we don't have that information as far as how we can do it and who's gonna do it. So right now, we stopped this program as of the end of this year, correct?
Correct.
So if that happens, are we looking at what are we gonna have in place before beginning of next year? Are we gonna have money?
If this program is ending at that point, then we can post for the teacher, but we can't post for a teacher until this program is ending, because
Why? I'm just curious. I mean, I know it's a stupid question, but go ahead. Can we post for any position we want to post? Or is there a requirement that says
Well,
we
because
can't?
it's an expansion, right?
It's an expansion.
Yeah,
Well, but
we would.
but again,
We would need to have board approval to expand,
okay, we're
And-
talking to us.
but
No, I'm just curious, Corinne. Again, my concern is if we do this, we stop it. We don't take the grant, we're not getting the money. We say, hey, sorry, we're not taking it. And all of a sudden we post this now and we don't get anybody, what happens? What do we do? We just lost out on an opportunity. We don't have everybody to take this new spot, or we find out that it's gonna cost us 3 times as much to replace this by hiring a special ed person. What is the cost for that person? And what are the odds of getting them? From my understanding, we're having a hard time getting those spots filled. From Hiawatha, aren't we? Aren't we? That's my comprehension of it. And I could be wrong. Been wrong a lot of times in my life. But my understanding is hard to find those people at a price that we can afford. That's why we have Hiawatha doing some of our stuff, correct?
no, what we're talking about is a special education teacher, not a Hiawatha Valley Ed, like
Okay,
assistant
what is
director.
that gonna cost us?
Beginning teacher is 40,000.
Okay. So we can't post for one ahead of time and get one in the books before we
I'm
drop a
not-
program? Again, I'm just curious. I don't understand
If you
this
hire
access.
somebody, they're here for the whole year.
Yeah, and I don't understand this, you're saying this access can cover these kids,
Access,
correct? Yeah,
Yes.
We'll cover all these kids?
it
equal
can
to
cover
what we're
the
offering them now.
non-special education ones,
What
and
about
the
the rest of
special
them?
education ones can be covered from special education.
if we
If
have
we hire
enough
somebody.
special education
Right.
teachers.
Okay, so how many kids would that be? That would fall into that window?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you're looking at hiring somebody for $40,000, but there's only 2 kids that fall in that window.
There's
That's-
12.
So there's 12 kids that would fall into the special education program. Okay, I just wanna make sure it's cost effective.
Because I know at the high school, the special education teachers are going to be working with the English teachers this summer to create the curriculum so that they're going to provide the replace classes. And so that's already planned.
A replace class and intervention, replace class, what's the difference between a replacement class and an intervention? Or trying to understand the verbiage.
In the high school, some of the kids, the students in the high school are having ITA as a replaced class instead of as the general ed English class. And so then the special ed teachers will do that replaced class.
So do they need a replace class or do they need an intervention? Or isn't that, what about at the elementary school? Is that a replaced class or an intervention at the elementary school?
It's a little both at the elementary school.
So I'm looking at, are we talking about reducing programs because we have budgetary concerns? Then there's a much bigger conversation we need to have about where do we need to save dollars, because to pick off a program here and there without knowing if the services are gonna be provided, and without fully being aware of how does this affect the high school and the elementary school, which sound completely different to me now, is confusing to me and a little bit disconcerting.
What are the numbers for keeping it on?
It's a little over 54,000.
Okay.
That was this year. And the way that the letter came out, it would be more than that next year to keep it.
And like, it would be an annual, it would be every year it would be changing. Likewise, it would be as far as if we had a special ed teacher, because it'd be a matter of how many students would qualify, correct?
Well, the cost for the teacher would be the same. If you're paying
Right.
$45,000, if it's a base pay of $45,000, then you got all the benefits and everything that goes along with it.
But if you went from
And every
12
year-
students to 6,
Then we
that
still
qualify.
paying the same price.
Right, I know, I'm
We're
just
still
saying.
paying the, whatever the price of the
I'm just saying the
teacher was.
per student average.
But I think Michaeline's question is my question as well, is why are we doing a program reduction? Are we short on money? Because I didn't know we were trying to cut costs, and I'm on the finance committee, so that's even scarier. I didn't know we were cutting stuff. Did you, Tom, are you on finance? Who's on finance?
Yeah, I am.
Did you know we were cutting stuff?
No, I mean, we talked about this a while ago, but I thought it was all kind of ironed out, but like I said, I'm kind of lost as far as what are we?
When we were on finance and we did the negotiations, and I said I will have to try to find
Right,
some money to cover this.
But I don't want programs for kids. I mean, to me, that's something
I
different.
thought we were looking at,
If you can improve a process to cut costs, good job. If you're taking programs away from kids, that's concerning to me. Because I think if it helps one kid, it was worth it. I mean, if we're seeing success, which we have some people in the audience who could, maybe one of them could help, like Rick, but you know, are these kids seeing success? If they're not seeing success, then of course it's changed, but if they're seeing success with the program and it's in our budget, why do we cut it?
What is, Todd and Rick's, what are your feelings on how this program has been a success through the years and the advantages of it, or retooling it is an option?
but we've been doing it for 25 years.
Well, yeah,
I
what's
mean-
different at the high school is, you know, a few years ago, we implemented the reading program at the high school, and that's had high success, and that's helped those kids out that were traditionally, you know, struggling, the non-special ed students, you know, that were struggling. That really helped them. The special ed students, a lot of times, ITA would be their replaced English, because the rigor was just too much at a regular English class. But now this year, this semester, we're down to 4 kids in the ITA program that are all special ed kids. Our special ed department feels very confident in being able to replace that within their classroom, which typically in special ed, you want to replace the classes within, if you're going to replace, within the special ed room, is what you do. So
And there's no
they're
extra cost
more
for doing
comfortable
that.
for What's that?
There's no extra cost for doing that.
For
It's
us,
gonna
it's
cover
no
all
extra
these.
cost at all, and you know, right now, we have a cost of a, you know, part-time teacher and a para that, you know, has very, very few kids, and we're lucky, and we still may have money pulled away from the ITA grant because we're not servicing as many kids as they thought, because plus we had 3 kids move away during the year that were written into the ITA grant, so that we're gonna end up spending more. So we're different than what the elementary's needs are, so I can't speak for them, but for the high school, we're really in good shape to be able to service those kids, you know, very well. They still have the reading program, and then if they replace their English within the special ed room, it'll be fine.
So
Especially when our
discontinuing.
numbers are so low.
Rick?
And at the elementary level, I've been writing the ITA grant for over 20 years now for the elementary building. And the alphabet, the ITA alphabet may not fit into research space, but the protocol that's being used in the building would probably qualify as a research-based protocol. And it's successful because of the teacher. Bottom line, if she were here today, I would be saying that too, but it's the teacher and it's the rapport she has with the kids and the teachers.
So how do we replace that? That's the ultimate
So,
question.
well, or is there any way to write the grant in
Well,
a way that can,
The intent to write the grant is due in 2 weeks. And in that intent, you know, I could contact the foundation and see what we could do. The foundation has come to Houston many times to use us as an example for training other ITA teachers. Both both the teacher and myself has spoken at the ITA conference about how it's been successful here. I do know that they're not giving us as much money as they have in the past, and that is a concern. And I think that they were giving more money than they should have been. But now that the foundation is looking at the bottom line for the foundation. But I think in communicating with them, it would be an intent, and see if they would be willing to give us more, since we have more students. I don't know.
When is the grant application due?
The application isn't due until mid-April to late April, but the intent is due in April 1st, which is a Sunday, so it's going to have to be due probably the 3rd. Sorry, not the 3rd, the Thursday of that week before. So it's due in 2 weeks.
29th.
Yeah, due in 2 weeks.
So you could file an intent but not actually fill out the grant application. Is that a possibility? I mean, you could say, our intent is this, while you research that a little more and look at how we're gonna replace, or.
Yes.
The amount of students needing the services fluctuates each year, and that affects the amount. So how is that canvassed each year to know what next year is gonna?
Well, last year, for this year's grant, we used the numbers that were receiving services last year.
Okay.
So now, in this year's grant, we could put the number of students plus the waiting list minus the students who are in 6th grade that are receiving services.
It's Todd saying that his group that comes here, they'd be covered under his program.
Right, yeah.
So would there be some savings
So
there?
would we be
So
able to
wouldn't that
save
be
some money?
yeah, wouldn't that
If
be
you're not
some
gonna have to
savings?
pay for the 4 students that are in the high school, or if any student, according to Todd, any student that comes into high school, he can cover those. So no extra cost. So our main concern is this grant covering the grade school kids that require this. Would that be more feasible? I mean, could we afford that or not?
I don't know.
I don't know, that's.
I would have to.
Does that work? Yeah. Is that an option?
Yeah, I mean, Todd basically said they would be covered. His would fall under the special ed or whatever group you have going.
If I save the money, shouldn't I get it to use?
No. No.
I'm teasing.
So what does it, maybe it's not like other grants, but don't you just write a grant and see if you get it, and then they tell you how much, and then you analyze if you want it or not? I mean,
I don't know how this one works.
what is
Yeah,
the harm of
I'm-
writing it, Rick's time of writing it, right? That's the harm of, but what if we get it and they give us what we had last year?
We find a way to.
Or if they
live
give us
within that.
nothing, then we have, it seems like we're talking about numbers that we don't know. It's hard to make a financial decision on numbers we don't know.
Well, I'll say this, you feel the passion and the success of it, that it's very adamant that it's a needed program on the elementary school. So, I mean, push comes to shove, worst case scenario, then is there a spot in the budget to cover that?
What would the cost be just for the elementary part of it,
Yeah.
over and above what we pay now? If we were to eliminate the 4 students in the high school,
Get one of it.
what would the elementary, would the
I
cost
know
be the same?
overall, we end up paying, over 54 for both. And, Shelley was saying that the grant, they won't do any more than 2,000 per student. And so if we're down to 27 students in the elementary school, the maximum we could get would be 54,000, which if they once again put the stipulation in that we have to have a teacher and a full-time para, then we would be behind by, well, whatever that full pay is for the teacher, the benefit, the para, the benefits.
How does the grant, I mean, I don't write grants, but it seems the grant, you make a case for the money and then.
No, they've been very adamant that
It's a number per student fee. Is what you're
I
saying.
mean, what if we wanted to have 2 teachers instead of a teacher and a para? We couldn't do that. If we were flush with funds, we couldn't spend more to have 2 teachers instead of a teacher, have to have a teacher and a para.
But we wanted to have just the teacher, and they said that there had to be the para in there as well.
And so it's not, is that triggered by a certain number of students, or it's
No.
just, if there
No,
was
I didn't-
one
it
student, you'd have to have a teacher and a para?
Yeah, and that's why we were having some real issues with,
Yeah. I don't know, Tom, do you wanna recognize Cindy?
Oh,
She's-
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Cindy, it's your hand.
It wasn't that they need a teacher and a para, it was that the student load had become too much to do the protocol that they want, which is mostly one-on-one or two-on-one with just one teacher. I was capped out with what I could do, but we still had more students, so they had a teacher and a para, up to 6 hours of a para. Up until a couple of weeks ago, the school should only have been being billed for 3 hours of para time, because that was all that we needed, and that was all that could fit in the schedule. It's gone up a little bit since then because we've added several kids at that point, but it was my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but that they also pay a portion of the para's salary, and that they pay a portion of my salary, a certain percentage of a teacher. If there were 2 teachers, then it would be that whatever it is, 35% of the salary that they pay for one teacher and 35% for the other. I'm not sure exactly what they pay for a para.
Rick, you know that answer, since you're the
That's what
one
I'm
who
looking
writes
for
it?
right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, does this need to be voted on tonight, or?
It's
Yes.
on there, isn't it?
I personally, I mean, we could sit and talk about it, but I feel like, I mean, if it's an important program, like I said, if it benefits one kid, it's important. And I don't feel like we have enough information to say it's costing us $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, or nothing. We don't know, so I don't see the harm in writing the grant.
Well, I hear it's costing us something. I mean, that's what I'm hearing, but I also have been to the MSBA convention several years, and Tom, you and we sat around and talked about how many schools need more support services for at-risk students and for students that fall through the cracks. And here we have a program that is providing some of that, and we are talking about eliminating it. And
Well, that's my
I'm not
concern. I
sure.
mean, we've always prided ourselves. I mean, even with our summit program here, how many schools around us have eliminated those type of programs?
That's right. So,
You know, because
How many kids did you say would qualify for ADSIS?
there's 12 that would go into special ed, and then 15 that would be, and a lot of the kids that are already in ADSIS.
And
As
ADSIS
well.
is what again?
Alternative delivery of specialized instructional services.
that's also an annual application, right? That might not be biannual, but it might not be, it's not an assured money, it's not guaranteed money, right?
That's also an application, yes.
Yeah.
So it's like an online?
So
No,
Oh.
no, we've got,
it's through MDE.
it's through MDE.
Yeah.
It's ADSIS, it's through, they set money aside from the special education funding to try to alleviate having kids qualify for special education. So it's a safety net.
Mhm.
And so
to
we
catch
have this
kids.
through what year? Is this the first year of a buy? Because we just talked about
Yes,
it.
this is
Okay.
the first year of the buy, so we have it this year and next year, and then we'll write the application again. We've been getting ADSIS every year since 2000, 2011.
So who delivers that service then?
How
We
does
have
that
one
work,
teacher at the high school. Vicki Nelson is the ADSIS teacher at the high school, and then Matt Shuddy and Hannah Levin are the ADSIS teachers at the elementary school. But I really want to be clear that when we're talking programs, we're talking programs. It's the program that we're discussing, not the people.
Well, I realize that, but I just wanted to get a handle on whether or not, the kids would still be receiving needed services from a person, not just an
Yeah.
online system.
Yeah.
And those people would have availability to cover.
not all of
So
them.
who is that says
all.
covering now?
Yeah,
How
who
many?
falls through the cracks?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
right
once
now,
we're not
we have about
special
12
ed.
kids that would fall through the cracks. That wouldn't be covered under access.
so we'd have to hire somebody
Or-
to,
With
or
special ed.
with special ed to cover the 12 kids.
But
So
we
either
do
way,
get-
it's gonna,
we
either way,
get
it's
special
cost.
ed reimbursement.
So how much is that? How much is the special ed reimbursement? So if we hire somebody for $45,000, which is an estimated number, to cover these 12 kids, what would we get reimbursed? Because the other way, the way we keep it right now, is what I'm getting from you is the amount of kids we have, we get $54,000, so there would be it would be a cost to us, maybe 10,000, just throwing out, I don't know what it would be, because we already got 54 covered from the grant, correct? If the program cost is 54,000, is what you said,
That's what the grant would get.
but how much
The
does the
program
program
costs
cost?
more
The
like
program
64
costs
or-
what it is for.
What is it,
the-
65 or something?
It'd be the 2 employees.
Over and above the 54,000, so it'd be the 54, whatever the 2 employees' cost would be.
Right.
So collectively,
Minus the 50.
minus the 54,000, that's what we would have to cover. Otherwise, we would hire a special ed person, which would cost us at least 45,000. And that person would cover the 12 kids that would fall through the cracks if we eliminate this program.
And
So-
we get reimbursement. We
And how
we
much?
do.
How
get
much
reimbursement.
would, that's the number, what's the
The
reimbursement?
reimbursement is typically about, it depends on which of the 3 refunds, but it ends up being about 48% of the salary and benefits.
So it's still costing us. I mean, that reimbursement doesn't cover the cost of a special ed teacher, covers a portion of it.
Right.
50% then.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're, either way, either option, which, where is that money coming from and is it available?
Well, within the budget, right?
Mhm.
Is it there?
So right now,
Well,
it was
we have
in
right
our
now. we
budget.
have
It wasn't
budgeted.
reduced from the budget at the budget talk time, right?
No, I mean, it's in there, right? I mean, it's in there for this year, unless something changed this year, it's in there.
Mhm.
I don't know what the amount is, we'd have to ask Gwen. I don't know, maybe it's 0 because we were getting it all reimbursed, but there's something in there for it.
Oh, for this year, it was 54,000.
So 54,000 is in the budget for that program. And I guess I'm
And
slightly
you're
confused
saying-
because it seems like that would be enough for next year as well.
You're saying that 54,000 is revenue or expense?
Expense.
Okay,
It's a little over 54 that is the expense to this, to the district.
And it's looking like next year would be 54 or less than 54 if we kept it the same. If we get rid of the high school and we kept it the same, it would be 54 or less.
Whole building.
It would be, depending on what they would give in the grant, yes.
So
So-
it's not gonna be any more than it has been, it's actually going,
So we've decided that we can separate elementary from high school, and this is an annual thing. Each year we would address this, correct? Each year you apply for the grant. Each year
Each
you
year
would.
we
All
apply
right.
for it.
Well, for this year, Todd seems very confident and got a handle on it. So I'd say cut that free and then apply for the grant with Rick. And I mean, let's not quarrel over a few $1,000s. If something's working so well. That's my vote anyway, so,
is that your motion?
that's my motion.
So, I mean, it's on for a vote to reduce the program, so how do we make a motion?
Well, I'm
to
hearing
that
2 different
effect?
stories, Josh made a motion on it, I guess.
seconded.
Boom.
It's been seconded, so
And we can have
discussion.
discussion.
So what is the motion?
The motion is, we keep the program as is with Todd eliminating the high school part of it and keeping the grade school program as is. And applying for the grant.
Applying for the grant and then covering whatever's not covered.
I guess if we come back, if we don't get anything for the grant, I mean, I'm a little hesitant in committing 100% until we get some real numbers. But assuming we get what we think we're gonna get, I mean, if they come back and say we're gonna give you 0 this year, then we might wanna reanalyze.
Well, what does
Do we
20
have
years
to
history
vote
of the
on
grant
this now?
tell us, Rick?
But
He made a motion.
they're getting less and less money
Yeah.
for
But
it.
to Mimi's point, we don't know what the number is.
So we got a motion, we got a second, we got discussion going on here.
Yes, we do.
So,
Do we have to vote on it tonight? Do we have to make this decision until we know what this grant is?
we won't know the grant until
I know.
after the year is already done.
No, he
I
said
mean, before.
mid-April.
That's when it's due.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know how long.
So Rick,
That's
this
right.
year really flashed like this is a reduction. Red alert. This is not. You are not going to get anywhere near what you've gotten in the last 20 years.
You're saying, what am I gonna get?
No, I mean, what did they tell you? Why are we all of a sudden worried this year?
Because it's across the board for the ITA Foundation. And I can go into that in more depth because I am privy to information that,
I mean, what kind of percentage less than they've been so generous with before? I mean, did they give? There's no any.
feel more comfortable if I could contact the foundation and plead the case, and I don't want it, I don't want to lay all my cards on the table at a meeting, but I would rather write a letter of an intent, put it higher than what we would expect, and then work with them.
And when will we hear back if we got what amount we got?
They meet shortly after the letters of intent come in, and then they decide which grants they're going to pursue,
So May or,
maybe even late April.
okay, so that's not too long of a wait, Tom.
But when do you have to let the faculty and staff know in terms of if you're making cuts?
It would be for the probationary, so that would be, beginning of June.
Okay, so we can know that grant.
I guess I'd like to see the whole thing penciled out in both ways and see how we're gonna come out before I make a decision on kind of blue sky. I don't know.
We have to write the grant to see where we're gonna come out.
Right.
So we have discussion going on here, we have a motion, we have a second, and we have the discussion is whether we table it until after the grant is written and determine whether or not we get the money, how much we get.
All right. Well,
But it all has to be done before
then the
June.
decision's been made. Then you're committed. So you are kind of put under pressure to
I don't think you have
decide.
to take the money unless you want to.
Correct.
I
Oh,
mean,
well, then do that.
Yeah.
they could tell you, we're gonna give you $54,000, you say, well, I don't want it.
We could say that's not enough.
That's not enough, we're gonna move on in a different direction.
Can we make a motion to table?
You've already got a
Okay.
motion and a second on the table, so you've got it.
And the motion was to move forward with
To
the
move
grant.
forward
Yes.
with the grant.
And was there a second aspect to that, or was it just to move
It was
forward?
Just for the elementary.
Just for
For the
elementary.
Yeah, so it's not to say that we're gonna move forward with the program, it's just to say that Rick should proceed with writing the grant to determine how much we would
Absolutely.
get for the elementary, but the high school is no longer going to have it.
So then we'll revisit this again, right?
Yeah, I think that's the motion.
Next meeting.
Well,
So,
when we have
one
the
final
information.
question before we go there, how, just how many staff does that affect in the high school?
In the high school, 1.5,
A teacher and a para?
yes.
And so that effectively eliminates their
Positions. But it
positions?
would have anyway, right?
Well, no, not, it
Not
would- not necessarily, but,
Yeah.
so then you go into the seniority list and the bumping things and things like that, right? Okay, just wanna understand how that works.
Is there any further discussion? We got a motion, we got a second.
Let's hear the motion again.
Josh, remember your motion?
The motion is to eliminate the high school or applying and to apply with the elementary.
Basically having the ITA program,
grant.
utilizing the ITA program in the elementary school only, and not in the high school.
Yes, Todd feels confident that they can reach those kids and have their needs met without.
Right, I get that part.
So that's why.
But are we set in stone if we get this grant the way you've written?
Well, it seems like I guess we aren't. We don't need to be. Is that what I'm hearing?
We're not set in stone, this is just to move forward with the grant.
Yeah, absolutely. So then it's
It's actually just to move forward with a letter of intent.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's
that's
do
gotta be
that.
all
That's a
right.
no-brainer.
And if you don't get the grant,
Then we need to
We'll
discuss.
discuss it
Then
again.
we have to make the decision before June.
Yeah.
Or if the grant is.
The
less
grant
than
will know
that
by
deal.
the end of April.
Yeah.
So we're not fixed to take the grant. if
Correct.
it's
Even
too
if,
low.
even if they give us $20,000 in the grant, we can come back and say, that's not gonna work for us. We need to look at a different direction. We can change our direction at that time. That answer your questions, Mr. Ron?
Yes, Brother Tom.
Perfect. So, got a motion, got a second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Rick, you have your work cut out to you.
Thank you.
Okay, where were we at here now? Approved 2019-2020 school calendar. We have a motion to approve the calendar.
We
Well,
got-
you have to pick which one.
Dang it, we gotta get through that.
Did you get any feedback from anybody on which one they preferred?
We had it, the, voting up at the Ramp Up to Readiness Night for the high school, and 30 people voted. And that one, it was 2-1 in favor of the tight calendar. So that's the one where there's a week and a half at Christmas, and I think get out the very end of May. I'm not even sure that one goes until June.
No.
And then, but with this, when the staff voted, 60% of the staff, and I don't have a breakdown of staff as far as online on site. I just got a whole staff vote. 60% of the staff was in favor of the booster calendar with the 2 weeks of Christmas.
Do we know how many staff voted?
No, I just got the,
So it could have been 3 people.
if it was, from what I got from Patty Herman, and usually when she sends stuff out, she has a big turnout. So, no, I know it's not just 3 people.
And the 30 people from Ramp Up to Ready were community members?
It would have been parents of 9th, 10th, and 12th graders.
No,
Right.
seven,
Seventh,
seven, eight,
ninth,
9, 10, 12.
Yeah.
So you said 60% of them were.
The teachers.
The teachers wanted the loose and the community wanted the
Make it
tight.
easy on us. Can't they agree? Come on, people.
I looked them over it last time when we looked at, originally I was for the loose one. But then afterwards, because I figured, well, the tight one, you had the, you were coming back right after the first of the year. And then I figured, well, you got those 2 days, you know, it's kind of hard to get started back. But then after looking at it, I looked at, well, you're going into, on the loose one, you're going into June. And students and everything else, when I was teaching, you know, towards the end of the year, I mean, they're kind of says, I'm full already, I don't, and it's harder to get anything taught. So I thought the tight one would give us, the students, a better instruction and learn more during the tight one than the loose one, so I don't know.
What did they have for spring break? So we talked about Christmas. Just remind me of what the spring, is there a spring break?
I think this,
The spring break one, there's only 1 day difference on that.
Okay.
On the loose one, you were going Thursday and Friday, or the tight one you were going, and the loose one you had Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday,
Thanks, Gene.
and Monday off.
The main difference was the Christmas holiday, correct?
Right.
Yeah, it was coming back on the 2nd and 3rd,
Mm-hmm.
and then the students were getting out the end of May, whereas otherwise they were going till the Thursday in June with the teachers.
and the teachers did ask, if they could have the, November 27th for both of them, with the tight or loose, they wanted that day off, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then they would put another day in. So then that would just move the end of that grade, 24th, would then move to the 27th, then would be grade,
On January, you mean?
January. The January 24th in-service day would move to January 27th.
If an
Oh,
in-service
so,
day.
so we're voting on this calendar, but it needs a change, so this is not really the calendar we're voting on.
And I'm just seeing that now because these aren't the updated ones, so.
So we're adding a 27
Okay.
Doesn't that
Yeah.
adjust everything?
in service.
Is it
Well,
one more day to
not for the
push everything
students,
up?
because the students would have had the 24th off, correct? Anyway, because that's an
Right.
in-service day.
Right,
So it wouldn't affect the students' day, the calendar for the students. They would actually give them a day off, they would give them 3 days off during Thanksgiving instead of a day off on the what is that, Monday, the 20th? Was a day
Well, it
off?
gives them a
But,
day off in
yeah.
January.
and so, what we can do, if you want more information on the calendars, then I can make sure that the correct calendars are loaded. You would have to see the calendars again anyway, because we don't have, they were coming, so the, teachers just could look at one calendar to add the QCOM half-days, the, half-day curriculum days. Those haven't been added yet.
So can we wait on this?
So we can just wait
So
on
we
this.
can wait on it, and then just, I can have them do the half-days, so you just have to approve it once.
Okay.
And then that could make your life easier.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
On the tight one, I mean, they weren't getting Martin Luther King's day off either.
Right.
So why don't we just redo them and then revisit them at the next meeting to
Okay.
finalize it? And
Yeah.
can you have them send it out to us and the right, we always get them, I know, but.
Oh, so not in
Yeah.
SharePoint, but just as an email attachment?
Yeah, to me, it would be nice to
Okay.
just see, not
Yep.
having to dig for it, you look right there and you have it.
Okay.
But the problem I'm gonna have is, the parents want one side and the teachers want the other.
Well-
You're looking at 30, whatever number.
But what's interesting is last time we did it, the teachers 100% voted for the tight one, is what we were told. And it's just interesting that now the majority are voting for the
Loose one.
which seems very strange from one year to the other that it would flip like
I wonder what
that.
their reason behind it is.
We
Well,
air condition the elementary school.
I don't know what the reason is, but at the same time though, I think, why does it have to be the same every year?
Well, yeah.
Why not,
Flip flop them every year.
why not flip flop it? I mean,
Well, I think people would be happy for the Christmas break time period, and I think people would be happy to be done before June.
I don't know, when I had my
Right.
kids at home, I couldn't wait for Christmas break to get over and kick them back where they
That's what I
belong.
need after.
Yeah, okay. And maybe that's why they wanted the other one, Michael. So they go back sooner for Christmas?
Well, that maybe, I don't know, it's just,
Okay, so we're gonna table that till next time. Right? Okay, moving right along, policies for second reading. Michael, we gonna approve these policies?
I move to approve them.
Okay, we got a motion to approve, we got a second. Discussion?
I have a question, and I'm not sure can you pull up the
Fund balance.
fund balance,
yep.
January
5%
2018? Not even the policy, but there's something posted on the SharePoint site that's got the fund balance. No, it's a different document. It's called fund balance.
January 2, it's a supplemental document in the folder, in the meeting folder.
It's got like numbers in it. And I just wanted to ask a question about it, and I don't know if we can.
Yeah, it's that top one, the one that says January 2018, that one is the
Right above
fund
Yeah, right above
balance,
it.
January.
It's got the percent of fund balance.
Oh. And then flip it so that it's.
So you can see it.
And my question was, if we looked at the general fund balance, it says 3.7 over there. But then if we look at the next year, it looks like it went down by almost 300,000. And so I wanted to understand if our fund balance is decreasing by 300,000 or how I'm misinterpreting.
Okay, what do you?
In the remaining balance column from the top.
The general fund, yep, 3706, and then down here for period ending January 31st, it says 3418. And I was just wondering, because it looks like our year-to-date expenses are drastically higher, 300,000 more this year, even though our budget was almost the same. And so I just wanted to it wasn't listed specifically on the agenda, but it's out there as a document, and we're talking about the fund balance policy, so.
And some of that's with the long-term facility maintenance and that project and the bonds and the pass-through on the bonds that went into that, the general
fund
fund.
balance on the top one, right? We got the money for the bonds and the top one, but they would be paying out, so you wouldn't have that money coming in for the second one. Cause we have that money,
So there's not really a drop in the fund balance.
No,
No, it's
No.
just the money passing
No.
through the system.
yeah,
Does that make sense to you?
because
I would like Gwen to
Gwen
look
can
at
probably
that
sit
and
down and
tell
show
me
you.
for sure. I mean, I think we need to have a facility committee meeting to really look and
You
see
mean a
what our
finance
committee?
finance, to look and see
Both
what
do
our
that.
fund balance percentage currently is, or do we know? I mean, I know the
well,
policy
no,
calls
cause we
for
just
5.
had our audit
Audit,
review.
right.
And our fund balance was up to 9%.
Okay, but I'm, okay.
What I
Yeah.
would say is,
I'm just, it looks like we're
Let's-
halfway through the next year, and I'm a little concerned that our fund balance is going down.
well, it's the other thing I said, I think it's because of the project we had, so that's why the money's kind of, but let's get with Gwen, and she can
And there's-
point it out
there's also-
specifically.
Truing up because what they paid on long-term facility maintenance that first year, because they were still, MDE was still figuring it out, there was the FY18 ends up being 143,000, and that includes some revenue that was supposed to have been given in fiscal 17. And so we made payments based on what we should have been getting. And so then we've got, because of that long-term facility maintenance that goes through the general fund. And it's not construction as much as the long-term facility maintenance.
Now, what does MDA recommend for a fund balance percentage?
12, I think.
12 to 15.
We're way down, but,
We
Probably widened it
set that for a
because-
reason.
yeah, but the auditors said
The
that we were
auditors,
okay
the
with
auditor
that.
said that we'd be fine, with 5 contract we have for the services with K-12, and the way that contract is written, 5 would be sufficient.
In the past,
Yeah.
we used to have the MSBA
Right.
12 to 15% written into the policy, and we never followed our policy. So we amended or modified the policy to be 8% or 7% to be consistent with our practices in our district. But to this question, or to this, if you can, you're having fun there, Ann, can you pull up the policy, the fund balance policy, if we're done with this? And going to there, section 9, I would just like to ask and ensure I spoke to Chris about this. We have a 7% and we are at 8% according to the auditor, but my concern is with the declining enrollment in MNVA, that we are at a little bit more risk of, we're at a little bit more risk. We're not quite as secure in that school and for our financial obligations. So I want to make sure that the finance committee is looking at the risk management associated with MNVA, which says it will be reviewed annually. And so I just hope that committee is looking at that and talking about it to inform the policy if it needs to be changed or we need to be thinking about that.
Okay. That's fine. Anything else on those policies? Since we have a motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And who seconded?
Ron?
I don't have to.
Thank you. New business, we don't have any announcements. Important events, March 19th, MSBA Day at the Capitol. Possible trip to Herndon. How is that?
I'm not able, well, the dates you talked about with Herndon in the past, I was not available 2 meetings ago. I don't know if those are the dates. I don't know if you've confirmed the dates. And March 19th, I'm not available. So I told Corinne I was not available for
I know we-
Anyone else available for the March 19th? That's Monday.
Yeah.
That's this Monday coming up, or no?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone? Okay. Possible trip to Herndon. One thing we talked about was April 24th and 25th. They said flying in on Tuesday, meeting for supper, and then touring on Wednesday and flying home Wednesday. Probably would be something that would work there.
I don't feel that I'm ready to go. I feel like we need to get some of this other stuff done first. I just don't feel like I want to have time to be prepared so that we know what we're going to talk about when we're there and what kind of our purpose is. But I feel like we need to get through the strategic plan, and we need to get, you know, finance committee meeting. I mean, we just have so many other things going on that I don't know that I'm mentally going to get out of it what I need personally to, or what I would like to achieve for the board.
I don't know, Jane, you were interested?
I was interested, but I don't know. It isn't essential that I go at this time yet.
Do you think,
Can we,
would K-12 offer, I mean, is this kind of they're offering it now because they want us to come visit now, and the offer?
You know,
be
the
held at
offer,
another time?
the offer, I'm sure would be there
Anytime.
in the fall. It
Well,
would
then I
be
think
there.
that there's no reason not to wait.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless we have a real specific goal that we wanna meet with them, I don't think it's that worthwhile to go.
Okay. It was just something that was brought up, and there were board members that said we should do that, so I was trying to get the opportunity for board members to go that said,
It was brought just due to it's been a while since
Yeah.
anyone's been there, so.
Well, and I think there are some valid reasons. I mean, I think enrollment's down, retention's down, contract is gonna be up soon. I mean, there's some big things we need to talk about, but
When does the contract?
we need to actually know what we're gonna
2021.
say when we go and know what our, you know, I'd like to be able to brag a little bit about some of the areas we're focusing on. I mean, just certain things. I would like to be organized and know what we wanna talk about, what we wanna accomplish, what we're gonna say. And I think we're a ways away from being at that point.
If our enrollment is down, I mean, are all the other K-12's enrollment following our same trends, or are they different?
WEVA is, Ohio definitely isn't, because the other online, one of the other large online providers in Ohio was shuttered. And so Ohio Virtual took in,
They picked
I
up some
think,
people.
6,000 students.
Wow.
Well, I think what we should look at is maybe either a fall trip, if it works out for everybody type of thing, or, but what we want, I'd like to put on the table, or at least keep on everybody's radar, is we're coming up on a contract time period. And what we need to do as a group is, let's review the contract, you know, whether it be the online committee, start there, or have everybody look at it and just make some ideas and thoughts on it. So we can sit down as a group and say, okay, do we want to maintain this type of contract? What do we want to tweak? Where do we want to go from here? Because my concern would be, it's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah.
You know, you said 2021, that's right around the corner.
Well, I'm thinking that we almost have to be starting on this in
Yeah.
2019, because we can't let it run out to the end.
No, that's what I mean. We need to talk about it.
So
And
I think we need at least 2 years ahead of.
Well, online schools committee should be,
Yeah.
I agree, should
Yeah.
be the starting point. for
so what we
this.
should do is maybe have that on our agenda. Mimi, you agree? Since you're on the meeting committee, you'd like to, you know, have a copy of the contract. And even if we don't go through the whole thing as a committee, maybe have it on the agenda and maybe piece it out, you know, look at a portion of it between now and the next year. And then discuss it as we have updates. Can we get a copy of it, Ann, just for the meeting? And then kind of
Sure.
start.
And we could upload it all to SharePoint.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We've
Does
got
that
it
work for
electronically.
SharePoint?
What?
Can everybody see SharePoint? Does that work? Do we know everybody can see it?
Yeah, because I didn't get a response on that.
I got it there.
It's hard because you don't know what you're
I know,
not
that's,
supposed to see. Maybe if you take a screenshot and say, can you all see this?
oh, that's a good idea.
I think I see everything.
Yeah.
I see what I see.
I see what I see.
I don't know if I see what you think I see.
We should probably start by saying, you know, what happens if we don't.
Well,
Yeah,
that's good.
exactly. These are- we need
Financially,
to be
what happens if
discussing.
we
What
don't?
is the repercussions.
Yeah,
I don't know what that would be.
conversation needs to be happening.
So that should be part of the list on our discussion for online. What happens if?
But I feel like we need to get through some of this other stuff.
Oh, no, we do. We have a lot on our table.
We already have we have to get some of this stuff done
Oh, yeah.
and pushed out of the way so we can then focus on some of this other stuff. Because if we add this now, we're gonna lose our minds.
So it needs to be on top. We need to remember this coming up.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Okay, committee updates. Facility committee, Gary?
Okay, we had a long agenda tonight. We started out with discussion about an HVAC server upgrade. It turns out that part of the reason we're not getting expected efficiencies at the high school is because, or could be because, the server is not providing what it's supposed to do. So the solution is to replace it for a cost of about $7,000. So that will be done. We also talked about antifreeze replacement for the high school HVAC system, and that will cost about $25,000. But the original was installed in 2010, so that's 8 years out of the original coolant.
These recommendations are going to who?
The recommendation was from
Winona Controls and UNESCO.
yeah, UNESCO review.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And the life expectancy out of the new coolant is 10 years. On the garage, you may have noticed the stakes out in that area, and that outlines as far or as close to the slough as we can build. So the plan is to put, what's the size?
60 by 26.
Yeah, 60 by 26 in that area, and the one end would come right up to the existing parking lot. And at this point, it's looking like Lester Buildings has the best quote, and they are also willing to partner with a construction class this fall to allow them to be part of the project and get some experience in that area.
Good. That's great to check into that.
Our first partnership.
Progress!
See, we're making
Okay,
I forgot I've been sleeping for 2 minutes.
and then as part of this, both Rick and Todd provided lists of things they would like looked at in their facilities. Elementary, some of the highlights are replace the gym entry steps. We've talked about that before. And also replace at the preschool building, replace the Grant Street steps and put a ramp in there. We also talked about playground equipment and at the elementary school, finishing the painting of the ceilings in the elementary building. That's already been planned and will be done. There are some safety and security items like replacing the pads on the stage that we'd like done ASAP, because according to Rick, they're not going to protect anybody that runs into them. So that's a high priority. Also checking on and maybe installing more exterior cameras and install an AI phone in the principal's office.
What's an AI?
It's
So you
the
can
buzzing
down.
phone,
Oh.
so it connected to the door unlock.
So it allows you to see
Yeah.
who you're buzzing in, that kind of thing. On the exterior, Rick identified that we need tuck pointing on the entrances A and B, and there's a exterior kindergarten door room for K1 that needs replacing, and we said just go ahead and get that done, because it's not a high dollar item, and it's something, you know, in the line of maintenance that you should just do as needed. Let's see, we also talked about
Been there.
Easy pipe.
pipes. And that's just one example of one that needs replacing. And
That's one of
what we
It
like,
was underneath the kitchen,
I
so
know.
it's totally in the crawl space underneath.
I know a couple kids that really like that pipe bursting.
Yeah, and it took Josh how long to make the hole?
Didn't really change my day, but yes, we need to check for fingerprints on that.
what we'd like to do is get a better estimate of just how many feet of pipe like that we have, and start replacing a certain length every year, rather than just waiting until they break. Just be proactive and put in place a plan to start replacing a certain length or whatever every year.
Are those pipes that can, video? I mean, can they go in the camera?
Oh, we talked about it to find out.
Yeah, we talked about buying a drone that would go through.
We're not buying a drone. I didn't say that. Yeah, that's what we talked about. But like Todd mentioned, most of them are like that, you know, the older ones.
That's under the 1957
So-
section of the building.
The idea is, like Gary said, come up with
Other
a,
than the parts we've already had to replace.
So I was just thinking from the standpoint of which do you do first, if you had some.
I wish there was a way you could
Evidence.
just,
yeah,
You know, they run them through sewer pipes, maybe you don't want the same one going through your
drinking water.
drinking water pipe, but you get the picture.
I think the easiest ones probably to replace are the ones that are in the crawl space underneath the hallway. And so we'd start with the easy ones to replace and then start working at the ones that are more buried.
So you're first gonna audit and figure out how many feet of pipe and where they are, and then
Right.
look at what all of that would cost and what kind of pipe, and then start being proactive.
Cutting away at it.
Would this all fall under long-term
Yeah.
facilities maintenance?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
but the objective is, like Mike, we talked about, is set aside, say we decide to do $10,000 a year,
Okay,
every year. How much pipe would that replace?
Yeah,
Say
okay.
we have
Alright,
we need
that's-
$100,000 worth of pipe, we plan it out 10 years. I don't know that we have that much, but that's kind of our thought process.
I would rather be proactive
Then wait for another.
yeah,
to
no,
wait
I
for another
understand.
Right,
deluge,
Yeah, wait for the whole thing to go down the drain.
perfect.
no pun intended.
and then
Okay.
Corinne talked a little bit about the AEI testing, lead testing.
IEA,
IEA.
Yeah.
Okay.
their IEA is our new health and safety consultant. They replaced Musser and Associates. But we have to test for lead in the water. And when they were here before, I asked if they could, when they're doing the water testing, do a wider scan of different elements in the water. So we have a view not only of lead, but we can see about iron in the water, we can see about other impurities in the water.
Ingesting a little iron is good for you, ingesting lead isn't. I'm just saying.
Good point.
But a little is fine, I wanna know, because
I
looking
know.
at the pipe, I wanna know how much is actually.
I don't know if that iron is absorbable.
Iron is hard to absorb, no matter how it comes.
Okay, at the high school, we talked about replacing the gym band room wall and some 1957 asbestos tiles. And that, the abatement alone will cost $81,000. And then we talked about the possibility of, you know, once they're ripped out, either going back with no wax replacement tiles or taking a look at the concrete when everything's pulled out and saying, well, can we clean it up and stain it as an alternative to tiles? And we already talked about the galvanized pipes. That's about it.
Did you mention playground for the fencing?
I think that's on here.
It's on the list.
Playground is on there.
Yeah, we talked
was
about
That
that.
might be a safety issue too, because kids, because they're not fenced in and they're out there.
Yeah, Rick has that on his
Rick
list.
said something about putting collars.
No, he
leashes.
did not.
Shock out?
We're on,
That's what I had written in here.
Oh, it's island fence.
And then you put a dog.
remember, we were being streamed.
Yes.
No, that's not what Rick said. I apologize. No, that's, what we're looking at trying to do is as many safety factors as we can first.
That would be one I would
We
say.
talked to Rick and Todd both we have these items that Gary pointed out that are top on our list, but also have them go through it and kind of prioritize them. And then Gwen's gonna get with us as far as how many dollars we have available, and we can start, taking care of some of these things.
So do these things, are they part of the 10-year plan?
Some of them may be, like on the new construction down here, and some of these other, not every one of these. I think we talked about having the 10-year plan tied into this, remember, Ann? Taking what's on the 10-year plan, taking the new list, consolidating them and eliminating anything that we've taken care of. I don't think we got the 10-year plan incorporated on this, did we?
The 10-year plan, the one that's filed with the State Department, the asbestos removal has been put on that plan. And then there's just long-term facility maintenance as far as generalized, but
Not the specifics.
not the specifics.
So we have that spreadsheet that Ann created, and many of these items were dumped on there as things to talk about. So is there, once that list is prioritized, can you just
Then we will,
prioritize it so we can see?
Yep.
Okay, so we can remember, because I can't
No,
remember.
no, that's it. We're not changing this list. If anything, like Rick said, is we may add to it.
But you'd also say
But
this
we
is,
wanna
this is a
yeah,
we're gonna
correct.
take care of these little things, and then this big thing, and then these.
Right.
and if there's
Right.
something big that needs to go on the 10-year plan, then we can update the spreadsheet for
To show that.
MDE and put that on there where we have the funds with long-term facility maintenance dollars to get that done.
But if we, as part of our strategic planning, one of the groups says, oh, we need to, our focus is on science and we need a new chemistry
That's on
lab,
there.
that would feed over to
Yep.
you guys.
Right.
I mean,
And
there
it's
might be
on-
something that's not on your list, but
Right.
that might all of a sudden, if the board says that's our number one priority, that might be the
go up on
right
the
one.
priority.
Oh, it would, yes, exactly. The idea, Gary went through kind of the things that we identified in our meeting as things that we feel we need to get done sooner than later. Like we've talked about the gym entrance for years, and we did do a skim coat on it. That didn't last very long. So we thought if they're gonna do that, let's check at the steps at the preschool building, maybe do both at the same time. The safety and security, as we know, that's an important aspect in all of our schools. And now that we have digital cameras at most of our schools, correct? This would just be an enhancement to that, to areas that we thought we were covering but didn't. So now we need to get them taken care of. So we're looking at doing those type of things, so. We're gonna have another meeting shortly, probably within the next month. We kinda wanna get some stuff going this summer, before summertime hits, so we can get some of this taken care of when the students are out of the school. So, we'll have an update at that time. Okay.
Oh, Finn, any news on the fill for the garage project?
That was on that bid.
It was, Lester had talked to Van Gundy about the fill, and it would be about 4,500.
That's part of the total cost on the building.
Okay.
Yes, and they said there's like $1,000 for black dirt for the top of it. So they would, for the total fill, they had like 4,500 and then another 1,000
Right.
for black dirt.
When would they do that?
That would be this summer, as far as, if we go with them, that would be the prep work this summer.
Okay.
So then we're talking about curb removal there and putting in paper,
Correct.
blacktop up to
We hadn't talked about it yet. That was a discussion item. We don't know where that would run in as far as cost. Because at one time we were talking if we're gonna do blacktop there, then we might as well look at blacktopping this whole, redoing this area, because it's kinda got some ponding going on.
Yes.
So that was if we're gonna do blacktop, we should look at what do we need to do overall
Right,
Right.
and do it all at once,
maximize.
And maybe we should dialogue with the city on that and get them to.
Do this road here?
The road out there, that really needs it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cause I've seen two vehicles go down.
Disappeared.
That's horrible. Alright.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody,
Feedback.
another one, on the MSB, who's done phase 3 and phase 4?
I've done,
I don't
it's been a
remember.
few years though.
Why do you think we're going to it?
Maybe,
We've talked, I mean,
End
that
of
phase
April.
3 is really something we should do as a full board.
I'll go to it.
I mean, I just think it's more valuable because you work together with other board members. Or at least-
And I
and
think
so-
you can do either one of those you can do phase 4 without phase 3.
Yeah, you can do them in either order.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
saying,
think
having gone to them all by myself, I'm like, okay, there's some good ideas here. Who am I gonna talk to
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
them?
that was a pretty good one.
And I think last year I brought up possibly going to phase 3 as a whole board.
When is the phase 3 on their calendar? I got that. I didn't open
Phase 3 depends if you go to St. Peter's, April 19th.
it. That was the one we went to.
See, but it's the day of the week. It's, you
Yeah.
have to take a whole day for that unless it's a Saturday. Some of those are Saturdays, I think.
Bemidji is way up, that's the one over there. St. Paul's the 14th, Marshall's the 17th, and St. Peter's the 18th.
I'm telling SBA to bring them closer.
They send me a special letter and then I see that they hadn't put it out there too, so. But I got one last week.
You're special.
I went to phase 1 and phase 2, they figured I'm a prime candidate.
Okay. Anything else?
Just to keep you up to date, on the school walkout day on March 14th, we did have some students that decided to do the 17-minute walkout. Todd did a really nice job the day before sending an email to teachers to make sure that no student got any disciplinary action for participating in that, but also that we can use it as a teachable moment as far as making sure the students understood why they were doing, the point of the walkout and maybe what they could do going forward to change things and to become more active citizens. So I think the staff handled it very well, and Todd went outside with the kids that were outside. It was mainly junior high students.
Thanks for bringing that.
Did Todd make them go around in a circle then? Because it was Pi Day.
They paid me $10 a piece to go outside. They did walk in a circle actually, so yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Because I heard numbers on that, I was wondering what it, I think
The numbers here were about
20-ish.
Yeah.
oh, that's quite, anyway, okay.
Yeah.
But we actually had kids, may I speak?
Yeah.
Sure.
We actually had kids that did a little walkout today as well. They called it a right to bear arms group because they felt as though the other one was about taking away their right to bear arms. So we had 2 students walk out on that. But a lot of them, I talk to them, what's your purpose? How are you going to get your message across, and what's the appropriate way? But I just thought,
It's fair.
it was fine. Everything was done the same way, and
So we're using it all as teachable moments, and to also, if we've got kids that want to start establishing some civic involvement, That's fantastic.
But if they're gonna start walking out on any given day for some given
then
reason, I
that's
don't
not
think
gonna
that
happen.
can go.
That's true.
No, 100% correct. I think it's.
We are in local parentis or something, are we?
Correct.
Well, and that's why,
We can't, right?
yeah.
It won't happen. It's
They go out tomorrow, like. Okay, anything else, good?
two kids.
So do we have a motion to go into closed meeting for negotiation strategy?
Can I ask a question? Can we, like, how long will it take? Otherwise, I think if we actually want to see a donkey, we might need to go, can we take a 10-minute recess?
Yeah.
I guess I don't know what's all on the agenda. I mean, can we take a 10-minute recess, or should we
It's just
just,
basically like,
can we be
you
done?
guys agree with us on this or not?
Let's just.
It's need to be done,
Let's
okay?
be done. We need a picture too. Someone here with a camera.
Hands are here.
Hey
Okay,
Todd, stall the donkey.
so, we have a motion, all in favor?
Did we get a motion?
Yes.
Sure.
Ron and Jean.
Thank you.
Keep it money.
As far as marketing, is it?
Yeah, what-